All right, guys, welcome into the latest episode of the Starting 11 podcast. My name is Emilio Pena, and I'm your host. I've got Grant Rowland here with me today. We've had a pretty crazy week of soccer slash football with the Champions League semifinals wrapping up. We've got our final set. It's going to be Inter Milan going up against Manchester City. Hard to predict this matchup if you would have asked anyone 6 months ago, 7 months ago during knockout stage or whenever that took place. But here we are with the two teams. Some results maybe a little bit more predictable than the others as far as the ties from this past week, the second legs. So why don't we just jump right into it? Inter Milan and AC Milan. I don't think we talked too much about the first leg. Inter kind of just took control within the first 12 minutes. I think they had two goals within 12 minutes and never looked back, just taking control of that game. So probably not a whole lot to get into for that, but what were your thoughts from that matchup, Grant?
I mean, this is right on par with like what we've been talking about the Milan teams all year, just like inconsistency. Who did AC Milan play in the last round?
It was
Yeah,
Napoli.
Napoli, yeah. And I mean they played better than Napoli, kind of blew them out, and then you kind of came into this game thinking I think we both took AC Milan to win it.
Hmm.
And AC Milan, I know the first leg without Rafael Leao, which is a huge loss, but down 2-0, like I guess both teams are technically at home the entire time, but you're still not traveling, like still split the fans half and half. So like same atmosphere you just played in. And then again, just they didn't score, did they? Over two
No.
legs, which is very disappointing. Just that consistency that we've been talking about all year struck again. Like AC Milan looked top of the world after beating Napoli, and then all of a sudden they just have two dud games against Inter Milan, and then Inter Milan kind of the opposite, underperforming like AC Milan kind of in Serie A. That point gap with Napoli is kind of nuts, and then they go out and put on two like really solid games, win the semifinal 3-0 on aggregate.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's kind of crazy to think about just this could very, I hate bringing up my own team, but it just shows like how important like those group stage games are because that one Gerard Piqué mistake, this inner run could have been Barcelona.
Yeah, they're same group, right?
Yeah, and that PK mistake is what had Inter Milan kind of hop over us. And a lot of people are kind of giving Inter Milan flack, saying it's like the easiest run to the final any team has ever had. I feel like we hear that every year, regardless. Like one of the teams has an easy run. But these are Champions League teams over two legs. It's like you can't like discredit based on that. And then it's the finals one game. We saw it with Chelsea the last time City was in the final. Chelsea pulled it off. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy how all that lines up.
Another player I wanted to talk about at least was Lautaro Martinez because he seems to be a big game player where he just comes up when the team needs him most. He had a goal in the second leg, 70 something minute, enough to put it out of reach basically if it wasn't already. And now he has an opportunity to win both the Champions League and the World Cup in the same season, which we'll get into another player who has an opportunity to do even
Yeah.
more than that in a bit here. But awesome opportunity for Martinez and obviously his teammates there at Inter. So, like you said, it's one game, anything could happen. I don't want to count Inter completely out. Obviously, Manchester is going to be the favorite,
Mhm.
probably by a pretty significant margin. But like you said, one game, 90 minutes, just whoever wants it more, whoever can outmaneuver the other team. So definitely going to be interesting to see on June 10th here in less than a month.
Yeah, for sure. And one other quick comment with like Inter Milan. When pundits are always talking about because we're wrapping up obviously all the leagues here pretty soon and they're asked like, "Oh, would you rather win Champions League or the league?" And most of them say the league. Champions League just kind of shows like part of the factor is the draw and then you just got to be great for like a couple games like every couple weeks whenever like the new rounds start or whatever. League you got to be consistent like all season. I mean we saw that with Arsenal. I mean led the table what 87 I think percent of the season.
Over like 200 plus days.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden few weeks like two three bad results and all of a sudden City's right there with them and overtake them. So not to like discredit the Champions League. I just think this is like a perfect case, like kind of understanding for newer fans, like kind of listening in. Like, yeah, the Champions League is mega important because like you're playing best of the best across all the leagues in Europe, but at the same time, it just shows like what an accomplishment winning the league is and how like valuable and impressive that is.
The team that we're about to talk about next has pretty recent history of winning their league several times over. Manchester City getting a pretty impressive result over Real Madrid, who, we know them. They're like the kings of the Champions League, and that's what they do. The most ever Champions League champions by the club by a pretty wide margin. I think 13 or 14, and the next most is like 6 or 7, I think. Manchester, yeah, getting I think it was 5-1 aggregate, and after the first game in Madrid, you're thinking this is anyone's matchup, but we go back to the Etihad and in Manchester, and it just all falls apart for Madrid. I have a few thoughts, but Grant, I wanted to let you say your piece first. Obviously, being a Barcelona fan, like we just talked about recently, you get to see and hear about Madrid probably on a more frequent basis than myself or some other people who aren't as active in La Liga. How should Madrid be feeling after this game?
I mean, to be fair, like their recent success is absolutely insane. They do have like that mixture of the young talent, but I think that was the game like where you officially start to see the passing of the torch. I mean, we all saw it. Man City absolutely dominated. Even in like the little stretches where they weren't completely in possession, it was kind of taking the brakes off, relax because you can't go full 90 minutes as hard as they do. But Madrid just like didn't look like a threat. They absolutely got overrun by the midfield when John Stones, which to be fair is interesting seeing him kind of move up and like the Trent Alexander-Arnold's doing it. Those defenders kind of playing on that, moving up into that CDM role on attacking. But I saw John Stones make I don't even know how many runs just dribbling straight through the midfield and moving the ball directly into De Bruyne or Jack Grealish's feet. And I mean, Man City, they made him pay. But when, yeah, like I said, when John Stones is doing that, that midfield absolutely got overrun. And it's kind of sad, even being a Barcelona fan, seeing the absolute class of like Luka Modric and Tony Kroos in there. Obviously, Casemiro is gone, but and with Busquets leaving, it kind of feels like an end of an era, and definitely kind of sad to see. But I'm excited to see the new kids. I know Camavinga said obviously he'll play left back for Real Madrid because he's about the team, but he is a midfielder, and we saw that Bernardo Silva absolutely. Camavinga did not stand a chance. But yeah, I'm disappointed in Real Madrid at halftime, even when it was 2-0. I had some friends text me. Ian was texting me. I was like, don't be surprised, like if Madrid come out and kind of steal this because they've done it before to Manchester City in the Champions League. But yeah, they just couldn't get anything going. I hardly remember Vinicius or Benzema even touching the ball. I can't even recall a single like shot on goal or cross into the box, anything that seemed any kind of threat to City. Yeah, it was just not Real Madrid's day. And I think that's officially like the game that kind of starts this new era for them.
That's a really good way of putting it too. And like you said, even as a Barcelona fan, it was kind of sad to see. And like they really kind of did expose Modric and Kroos for their age and
Hmm.
inability to run with some of these young kids. And it does seem like a missed opportunity to get Tchouaméni and Camavinga some minutes up in the midfield. And if the reports are true and Madrid landing Bellingham, then I think next year you're officially going to see like a brand new era of a Madrid midfield. Valverde too. He
Hmm.
wasn't really doing a whole lot on the pitch in the middle of the park. And then when you got like Vinicius and Rodrigo as your wingers, and they're not really coming back to support on defense, then it feels like you're playing like 9 on 11 almost, and
Hmm.
you're screwed or set 8, whatever you want to call it. Because I mean, Benzema's not necessarily tracking back and helping out as much
Yeah.
either. So there was I forget what the stat was, but I saw at halftime it was like I think like 80 something to somewhere in the teens percentage of possession, which you see that against a like a Fulham or like a Leeds or like in La Liga, you could see Madrid getting away with having this older midfield against Osasuna or someone like that, Elche,
Hmm.
not against Manchester City, and yeah, it showed on the field. It was important too. I felt like was you think it's going to be Holland, you think it's going to be De Bruyne, but you mentioned Bernardo Silva with 2 goals, Manuel Akanji getting one on a header of a corner, I think, and then your boy Julian Alvarez, we briefly alluded to him earlier. He had a goal, and just like
Hmm.
Lautaro Martinez coming up big in some of these games, here he is coming up big, and he has an opportunity to win a quadruple: the FA Cup, the Premier League, the Champions League, and then he already won the World Cup. So
Hmm.
that would be absolutely nuts if City were to win and Alvarez were able to take home four of those trophies in one calendar year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see because there's always like the stat people kind of looking up. I'm curious if that's ever been done, if Julian will be the first one to accomplish that. And then it
Hmm.
always begs the question of, well, he's done that with City. Is he going to be okay with being the backup, or is he going to want to kind of move on to be the starter somewhere, especially when you have all those trophies already? You're not too worried about never winning on one in your career. And he contributed. It's not like he's been riding the bench all
Hmm.
season. So,
And it wouldn't even be a shock to see the way that, Pep Guardiola tinkers with the lineup if he, got a shot in the starting lineup in the championship or in some of these last couple games here in the Premier League or even in the FA Cup, because I mean he is that caliber of player. So,
mhm.
you can justify keeping him in that starting lineup no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what this is always the question now and kind of the concern because Pep, we've talked about it, notorious overthinker in these games. You have the Premier League you're still fighting for, FA Cup, and obviously the Champions League final, all within I think the next 3 weekends. Yeah, it's like this weekend and then three more is a Champions League final. So like the man management, the team management, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Obviously, we've seen kind of with Napoli resting players for too long. They kind of lose the form, and it's that slight edge that kind of can lose you the games. But it's the balance of potentially risking injury. It is the end of the season, a lot of miles on those legs, and you're still in a fight with Arsenal. Like I know it feels like there's a comfortable-ish gap now, but can't get too comfortable. So yeah, I think that'll be probably the most interesting thing I'm gonna watch out with City moving forward.
And I just checked the FA Cup final is exactly 1 week prior to the Champions League final. So that kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying about Alvarez. Like maybe if they want to give De Bruyne a little bit of a rest for the Champions League final or whomever, they can afford to plug him in and
Hmm.
virtually the same result, especially with the way that United's been playing lately. They need to play their best players.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think another interesting thing, like we're starting to see, and something definitely to keep an eye on for next season is like the Klopps, the Guardiolas, Ancelotti a little bit with Camavinga. I'm interested to see if this is like a new kind of era of how like teams are lining up and playing. I think it's real interesting, and it like teams are finding success. Like as a Liverpool fan, you've seen Trent like the start of the season up even past the World Cup, a few months after getting dogged for just having a bad season, and now is in this like right back, but in attack moves into that CDM kind of role. And he's flourishing and they're playing well. And it seems like it's not really disrupting like defense. Like, has Liverpool been conceding more? I don't think so. Maybe even better. And then we see John Stones moving up. I know Xavi's kind of doing that with Eric Garcia. There's rumors he's going to be as a center back, lining up as a pivot CDM midfielder, kind of how Busquets is playing with Pep too. Julian Alvarez as a striker. He's dropped into that cam role before. I'm curious to see if like this trend continues and this is like a new kind of age of these like really top class managers like figuring out new ways to play. I think that's really exciting to see just from like a nerdy kind of
Right. Just
formation kind of perspective. Yeah.
this is the X and O's of soccer, basically. Everyone likes to
Yeah.
over in the States here draw the X's and O's with the football and everything. But I mean, it's the same thing with soccer. You just, moving chess pieces around the board, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And we're starting to see I kind of want to compare it to like the NBA, like a positionless NBA,
Hmm.
almost like a positionless like soccer field. It's a little bit tougher to do because like keeping shape and stuff. And it's not like the NBA, you can't have players just all over the field, but kind of similar in that regard.
It is funny because I was watching the NBA game last night and I forget who was on a fast break, but they were clearly past the last defender. And in my head, I was just
Hmm.
like, that's offsides. But I was like, this isn't soccer. There's no offsides in basketball. You could cherry pick if you wanted, technically. But
Yeah. Or they're on a fast break and they like do the foul or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's a clear yellow, that's a clear goal switch
right, yeah.
opportunity. And it's
Literally
yeah, or
set
red, but
piece.
yeah.
That's basically like flagrant fouls are.
Yeah. Well, like inbounding is kind of like a set piece in a way.
Yeah, right. Because
Yeah.
you get the
But
plays and everything drawn up.
yeah.
But a lot of time between now and the final, so I don't want to get any predictions out there just yet. Anything could happen, form could change, injuries could happen.
Yep.
So we'll hold off on the predictions for now, but wanted to at least get a little recap in from the past week. And I know it's a short turnaround for the next episode, but looking forward to some of these championship battles. I know United still has a game in hand on Liverpool, so that Champions League race in Premier League is getting interesting, and the Bundesliga title race is still wire to wire. So still a
Yep.
lot of
As
exciting
always, yeah, the relegation battles. Yep.
still a lot of exciting football to take place in these
Hmm.
last couple of weeks. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next week.